Syria, and as anticipation intensifies about what intervention might take place against the Assad regime, more and more people are streaming into Turkey to escape the bloodshed. CNN's international correspondent Van Watson is at the Turkish border scrutinizing the escalating situation.
Exactly at one of the gates between Turkey and rebel-controlled Syria, and there's kind of a constant trickle of movement, not only into Turkey from Syria, but also out. You can see that there are some men waiting to go back into Syria. We've seen families moving both directions. Some of the families that have been coming out have told us that they're leaving because of the war, also because they're worried about the possibility of some kind of U.S. military operation, and in particular about the possibility of reprisals from Syrian government forces in the wake of such a potential U.S. military strike. But we've also talked to, and it's important to note, there's not a flood of refugees coming out because of this. There are more than 200,000 Syrian refugees currently living in camps inside Turkey, many more living unofficially outside of camps, but the Turkish government estimates only 200 to 300 are coming out of Syria a day these days, which is not a substantial difference. A lot of the people that are coming back and forth are actually rebel fighters, not carrying their weapons, but perhaps coming here to rest, for medical treatment, or to see their families who are refugees in Turkey. And one of them told us he is very much in favor of the U.S. military attacking the Syrian regime. Take a listen.
If Obama fight al-Assad and his government, good. Thank you very much. But if he want to fight us all, you know, this is
no good.
This is a red line.
And there's clearly some suspicion among some rebels, some concern that maybe if the U.S. military attacked the Syrian regime, it might also take that opportunity to attack some of the rebels who are affiliated with al-Qaeda groups. Some concern there.
Syria for more than 40 years. It started with Hafez al-Assad, and now his son runs the country. But there is the current president's brother, who is known and feared as the family enforcer. Brian Todd has more.
Many decisions on the use of brute force inside the Syrian regime are connected not only to President Bashar al-Assad, but also to a man a couple of years younger, often by the president's side, always in the shadows, his brother Maher.
Maher is the kneecapper. He is in charge of securing, keeping the regime in power.
Considered more brutal than his brother, the muscle in the family, Maher al-Assad commands the 4th Division and the Republican Guard, elite Syrian military units composed of mostly minority Alawite Muslims, the same sect as the Assad clan. But he's got something else in his portfolio.
Maher, as well as his cousins, have come to control what's called the Shabiha, or ghosts. They're Alawite paramilitary forces.
Forces that analysts say have carried out massacres of Syrian villagers. Maher's actions once led Turkey's prime minister to publicly slam him, saying he's, quote, chasing after savagery. Ted Katouf is a former U.S. ambassador to Syria who's met with the Assad family.
What is the real influence that he personally has over his brother?
I think his brother has to be wary of him because he's a hothead. And he's known to be a hothead, and he's known not to have particularly great judgment. But you know, when you're ahead of a mafia-like regime, you depend upon enforcers.
A role Maher's relished, experts say, for many years. There's one legendary account of the time his sister was set to marry someone who wasn't exactly up to the family's standards.
He is said to have shot his brother-in-law in the stomach in the early days, before the brother-in-law was his brother-in-law, but was trying to marry Bushra. And the father did not approve of the marriage, thought he was low, and Maher was already the enforcer before the father died.
The brother-in-law was killed in a rebel bomb attack on the Syrian cabinet a year ago. Maher was believed to have been wounded in that attack and hasn't been seen since.
We don't even know. There was rumors that his leg was blown off, he was badly wounded. This could be true. We don't know exactly what condition he is in today.
If Maher al-Assad is still alive and still helping his brother, they'd be following a menacing family tradition. Their late father, dictator Hafez al-Assad, placed his own brother, Rifat, as head of some important Syrian security units. Rifat al-Assad was reported as a key figure behind a 1982 massacre in the city of Hama, in which tens of thousands of Syrian civilians were killed. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
A teenage boy has been convicted in what is a notorious Delhi gang rape case. A medical student attacked by 5 men on a bus. You may recall early last year, December, sparked an outrage across India. Now the victim later died at a Singapore hospital. Samima Uda has more on the sentencing from Delhi.
Been handed down on one of the 5 suspects on trial over that deadly gang rape of a student in that moving bus back in December. The court has found the juvenile suspect guilty, and he's been convicted on charges of murder, rape, and robbery. And because he was a juvenile, because he was 17 at the time the crime was committed, he was being tried at this court, the Juvenile Justice Board. And the maximum sentence he can face, because he was a juvenile, is 3 years in a correction home, and that's exactly what's been awarded to him. Here you've got a bunch of protesters who are very unhappy with that verdict, and they say, we want justice. We want justice! Many people in India have been objecting to this, saying if he's old enough to commit such a heinous crime, he should be charged as an adult and face the death penalty. The parents of the gang rape victim were inside the court when that verdict was announced. They say they're very unhappy with this, and they have 60 days to appeal, and that's exactly what they will do. Samima Uras, CNN, New Delhi.
Time for a second break. The news continues in just a moment. Recap, long, short, or... And welcome back. Before we go, a reminder of our headlines. The Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, Dr. Aissatou Saidi, has bade farewell to Cuban and Kuwaiti top diplomats to the Gambia, who conclude their terms of duty in the country. UNFPA Banjo office has presented medical equipment worth over $10 million to the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. Scores of desperate civilians are rushing to cross the border into Turkey amid fear of an impending U.S. strike on government military targets in Syria. And a court in Delhi has sentenced a teenage boy to 3 years in jail after he was found guilty of involvement in the gang rape of a medical student in Delhi. That brings us to the end of the news. Thanks for watching and have a good night.
Well, this is Weekend Spectrum, a program that looks at human interest stories in and outside the Gambia. I am Mamoudou Diallo. In this edition of the program, we look at efforts by government to control the production and use of plastic bags in the Gambia, as well as second-hand goods. We also look at the latest addition to the blossoming literary collection in the Gambia with the launching of a new book by Mr. Demba Sisi. In the Middle East, a military strike on Syria is looking increasingly likely. We'll look at the ramifications from someone who knows the region all too well. We'll also hear from a Ghanaian expert on the power of the internet and his dream for Africa. All that and more after this break. Stay with me if you can. Welcome back. One of the main reasons why the President instituted Operation Clean the Nation is to control the indiscriminate dumping of waste, urging communities to better manage the waste they generate. Plastic waste constitutes one of the most serious problems government and municipal councils face, often pushing some to call for an outright ban on the use of plastic bags. But the Minister of Environment, Fatunde Gay, argues government has no intention of banning it just yet, but instead intends to follow a process of sensitization, education, and collaboration among all stakeholders. Let's look at this report by Uminjai for more.
Plastic bags are perhaps the most used material in our everyday lives. Almost everything we consume, from food, water, and other things, is wrapped in plastics. It is becoming so indispensable that it is visible everywhere.